Hello and welcome to the podcasting channel of ISACA student group of ICBT or ISG ICBT, as you can see in the screen. So, this is our inaugural podcast and we are hoping to come up with many different podcasts in future on the topics particularly related to the information and cyber security. So, ICBT ISACA student group is of course one of the student arms of this ISACA global and also ISACA Sri Lanka chapter. ISACA is one of the world renowned organization that of course dedicated for the information security governance and also the auditing and compliances. So, having been one of their student arms, we have been operating since 2022, and during the time we have been able to deliver many different programs, many different projects to enhance the knowledge of our students, and also we have not forgotten our responsibility as a citizens, as we have delivered many different CSR projects as well during the time. So, my name is Kalam Vikramarachi. I am the lecturer in charge of this student group ISG ICBT, and today, as I said, so we are very happy and proud to come up with this innovative idea of launching our podcasting channel. So, it is absolutely pleasure to have a very distinguished guest today. Actually, he is one of the great scholars. I can give you many different explanations or many different ways of introducing him, but since we have been friends for almost 2 decades, I can give you only one way. It's very simply, I can call him as a great scholar and great practitioner in the arena of information and cyber security. So, my dear friend, and of course this great friend of mine, Dr. Sameera always, and thank you very much, doctor, for joining with us, and welcome to the show. Right, today's our topic is of course about hacking, one of the very interesting as well as highly attractive topics in the world, and obviously we are talking about hacking life cycle and many other different aspects of hacking today. Dr. Sameera, actually when we say hacking, it's a highly attractive word, and a lot of people of course when you say hacking, they are simply getting into that. Basically it is highly attractive and also bring the people into that. What is the reason? I mean, like, why people of course this much interesting hacking into the others, get into the others, and first of all, what is actually hacking before we say that?
Right, thank you, Kalam. Now its hacking is something it's derived from the word called whacking, right. So, it is something that is very simply, writes very simply, it says unauthorized access, right, unauthorized access. It could be like the computer system, it could be like the network, it could be a premise as well, it could be the physical access as well. So, it refers that all these aspects, it is not only like getting into like digital world as well, right. So, now when it comes like you said that you asked me like something kind of like very nice question, right, because getting into someone's thing.
No, that's very, yeah, I mean, like, it's human nature probably, but why this much?
Well, hackers like so they have something that there could be like many intentions, right, but most probably people are people, we call it as people are people, right. So, when it comes to like people aspect, the human nature and human beings or Homo sapiens, right, will most like to sneak peek into others' work, right. So, that's a natural scenario. So, when it comes to when the involvement of the computer and IT, right. So, this the nature, right, is never hidden, right. So, it is not hidden agenda, but people go with the technology, right. So, and their nature also fish into the computer world. So, it's not only the nature, but technology evolvement takes that the nature with the technology, and now because of that, so hackers also are the people, right? So in such manner, so the technology evolvement and the human nature plus get together, and it is going ahead and it will never stop. So that's why so much of interest of the people, right? So as you said, so it's something that we cannot even stop, and it's because of human nature hidden inside the digital world, and it could be physical as well. As I said, it could be physical as well. So it's like the physical entry, unauthorized entry is not a new thing. Is from the human birth, so human the nature came like that. So it takes with the human. So the physical entry, as I said, it's a physical entry is not a new thing. Even burglar is a hacker, right? Burglar is a hacker. Thief is a hacker, right? So that's why mostly said, to catch a thief you must think as one, right? So I think that's going to be the nice explanation in such manner.
In other words, actually even the technology couldn't stop the human interest of getting into the others.
Exactly. Yes, I agree.
That's what. So that's human nature.
That's always.
So we have to just console with that idea.
Exactly.
Okay. So we all like.
We all, yes. We all.
Yes, sir. Right, Doctor. Now, there could be many different motives, and also many different people, many different categories. Actually, we call them as the actors, threat actors. So, who are those people? I mean, who are those actors, and also, what are the most possible motives of people being this much interested in hacking?
Welcome. Now, in such, it's good, and also it's kind of an awesome question, right? So when it comes to threat actors, right, is similar to real actors in a drama or a movie, right? So these threat actors, they are originating, planning, and so many stages. They are fishing in this type of this unauthorized access type of this scenario. So in such manner, threat actors are the people who's behind the intentional motive, right? Intentional motive, not accidental. It's an intentional motive. The motives could be starting from hate. It's a human qualities, right? Human qualities human perhaps the agendas, right? So many bad agendas, right? And sometimes the funny agendas as well, right? So for an example, now because of the hate, right, because of the anger, right, because of the revenge, people take the revenge. So the hacking, the motive behind these things could be all of this, right? Some funny scenarios, I could remember sometimes back in the 90s, a person something called Tutang, right, from Taiwan, right. He was creating a computer virus, a malware, right. So which is actually damaging all hardware. At the time in 1995 we called it as Chernobyl virus, right. So because of that, CAH 95, right. So in such manner, so he was he created this virus a malware, because he was an uncle was was his only family. Uncle was working in Chernobyl, right. The uncle was killed with the incident, right, of Chernobyl. The nuclear plant was blasted at the time, right. So because of that, his only family has lost, right. Because of that anger or could be a sadness or something like that, this guy created a malware. It's time bomb malware, which is exactly triggering on the same day that blast, the plant has been blasted, right. It actually damaged millions of computers in the world at the time. It was a real disaster. One other thing, at this after this incident, there was a funny virus, but it was damaged the millions of computers as well. It's something called NIMDA, right. NIMDA was created by a a guy like which was like chosen his career as a systems administrator, right. So in shortly administrator we call it as admin. So he was sacked right from the company for some reason because of hate and anger, right. He was created a malware called NIMDA. NIMDA means the reverse side of admin. So and also like because of like feelings of the healing feeling of the nature, like so something called romantic scenarios, love, right, and affection and all these things could lead to like this type of scenario. The classic example is like in even in 90s, right. So we got actually like a virus called Melissa, right. Melissa was like created by a person who actually loved his like life like for 10 years for his like fiance. So for some reason the fiance will vanish in somewhere, right. It could be like it could be the reason, right. We don't know the reason, but this guy was dedicated his life for his fiance, right. So because of that he created a virus called Melissa, and in same way there was like another virus, love letter, right. So and many other incidents including in Sri Lanka, right, in 90s in nearly 2000, yeah, I think like I'm not sure about the time, but there was like there was like incident happening like near Mamanalla, right. So 12 actually people were killed inside the van, and it was like how in the time in the country. So one person who created a virus called a malware worm called Mamanalla from Sri Lanka, right. It was rapidly spread through the Outlook at the time, like Outlook, and it was written in Visual Basic, right. So it was taken like the political message, right, delivering throughout the millions of computers, right, in the world. It was not damaging. It was not damaging at the time, but it was giving like distributing the political message. So this could be like the political agenda, love, affection, hate, or anything else, right. So whatever like human qualities, right, sometimes like show the gratitude, right. So people creating like these type of intentional things, right. It could be like the hacking, like not only the hacking the scenario, but breaching into someone's computer or damaging someone's computer, right. So and sometimes like you are aware like about the ransomware. Nowadays it's ransomware like such very disastrous point, right, in the milestone of like the computing, right. And now it's so it started from WannaCry, like it was like boom like like that. Now there are so many things, right, that these type of scenario, very bad scenarios, and now like the problem is like attacks are now getting sophisticated because of the artificial intelligence as well. Now it's going to like the next steps as well. So well, it could be like different motive, like different human thoughts could lead into like these type of like the hacking incidents. I think like that's going to be the acceptable answer like from as well.
Yeah, and also I think this government to government, because we are talking about this cyber warfare. We always the smart people don't do the wars on ground these days, right. So in that case we have two stupid wars in the world at the moment right now. Exactly. And but then again the smart people, they do the war on cyberspace, and we call it cyber warfare. Exactly. So that's where I think this governments are also very much involved into that. So there are many different reasons, as you said, of course, this human emotions, then of course political reasons, and there could be financial benefits and the gains and so and so. So like that, many of these things. And also I think some of the people they are into that because I think they just want to test their knowledge as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's to be the one. To be the one to show the colors, right? People like it.
Yeah, and you may remember that, you may recall that we had one of our past students, remember that he had gone and done some vulnerability assessment on a particular site, and then they have informed them and they were blasted by the particular organization and so on. So I think there was no malicious idea there, but only to see to what extent he can perform his knowledge, and unfortunately
it was gone wrong.
In Sinhalese we call it the Vandinna giya Devali he kada kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Isn't it? So that's why. Right. Okay. So there are many things. At the end of the day, it's a human thing. And talk about this ethical hacking. Now, one might be wondering, if hacking is ethical, then can't we have ethical thieves? Obviously, one could say we had something like 225, right? So like that. But of course, hopefully it will be changed from tomorrow onwards. Hopefully, but anyway, so how hacking can be ethical?
In a manner that ethical side. So it's the techniques in ethical hacking or hacking is the techniques are techniques. Doesn't matter like it's ethical or unethical, right, or malicious. So the techniques we use like the ethical hackers also the same type of things that hackers use, right. So that's why like it's called white hat as well, right. Sometimes we call it as ethical hackers, white hat hackers.
Let me interrupt a little bit there. Now, yes, you talked about white hackers. So why don't we explore, tell us those different categories of the hackers?
All right. So starting from like white hat hackers, right? So it's being called them as two subsegments. So we call it as professional or ethical hackers. In one side we call it as white hat hackers as well, and the other side, right? In hacking world, the malicious hacking world, they call them as like script kiddies, right? Script kiddies who doesn't have any knowledge, but just download like the scripts or programs who other people created. So for an example, from GitHub, right? So and they test like in their premise, right, or in their computers, and do like the malicious activities over those scripts which is actually not their creation. So we call them as white hat hackers or script kiddies.
Yeah, talking about script kiddies, you may remember that there was an incident. One of our past presidents' personal site had been actually hacked by, in fact, defaced by a script kiddie, and he thought that was a big thing, and he had awarded that student. Actually, he was a student, like 15-year-old boy, and awarded with an iPhone or something. So that's obviously probably one of these.
Exactly, like most of like the defacing and all, because defacing is not a hacking actually. It's just like it's a part of like the entry point of the hacking, right? It's but the most people the boasting themselves and calling themselves are hackers, who actually be like always like defacers are defacers. Like it doesn't matter you deface a website. It doesn't mean that you have a fantastic knowledge in data breaching or a breaching into the premise, right? So defacing is like one of the small portion of the hacking, but mostly hackers like script kiddies are most like they were boasting about themselves as hackers, right? Over these type of what you call website defacement, right? So I don't think like that's like it doesn't require like much knowledge, right? All we need is like analytical knowledge is enough to like deface a website. It's not a real hacking actually.
Sure, yeah. And actually we can tell our spectators, that viewers, that if you go to zone-h.org, you can see a lot of these deface in the world that happen in Sri Lanka as well as in the world as well. So you can see on the screen is zone-org. So if you want, you can go and
there was another site, the Hackmageddon, right? Hackmageddon, also like .com.
As also you can see on the screen.
Yeah, so definitely like so you can go thousands of like the sites like and the remarkable like the companies also got hacked like because of like this stuff of because we don't need to underestimate like script kiddies, because sometimes in a luck, right, they might have like hit to the bottom, right, or hit to the top, right. That's a luck anyway. So but when you check the Hackmageddon, there are a lot of like notable websites also, right, defaced by like this type of like hackers, right, and data has been leaked like not like you don't need to become like a big shot, right. It can be done like with the the vast knowledge of what you call lot of these white hat tools, right. So nowadays it's to become hacker is pretty much of easy, because YouTube tutorials, right, are vast explaining how this type of thing can carry out and to become a hacker or a security expert. So you take good thing, then you become security expert, or it takes the bad thing, it's you become a hacker as well. So I think that's the white hats, we talk about the white hats, right.
And the others?
The others are basically the gray hat, so that I'll explain gray hat after the next level, right. So the black hats, right, so black hats are always the real people, real coders, right.
And also bad guys.
It could be the bad, or sometimes black hats help, right, help many people, this there was notable hacker, right, that was he is calling himself as Robin Hood hacker, right. What he has done, he broke into the banks, right, and he donated the money to charity organizations. Is a Robin Hood hacker. It's a black hat. We don't know actually who he is even now, right, because FBI tried catch up this guy, but nobody knows who he is even now. He was stolen many millions of dollars, right, from the banks and some organizations, but actually he was hidden. He doesn't have any identity, right, but he was done this thing. It's not a bad thing, but in a professional manner he was done convicted to be a hacker, because he was stolen, right. So same interconnection between a real Robin Hood, right. So at the time Robin Hood was called as a thief, right. So this guy also a thief, right. So the black hat hacker have no identity. Absolutely, there's no identity. It's always anonymous.
Absolutely, right? Yeah.
It is always anonymous, and right. So it is always camouflage the scenario into their actions as well. Sometimes these type of hackers never in the surface web, right. So most these guys in the deep web or dark web, right, or we call it as what you call onion, right, the onion router, the Tor network, right. And also the some people, but many black hats with a bad intention, right. So they, if you go to this torrent and all other things, many black hats are playing those in the torrent and peer-to-peer network, and also the Tor network, right. So illegally they sometimes I was looking to one torrent, right. It was actually the stolen the upcoming movies. It was not released from Paramount and Universal Studios, right. Someone actually hacked into the Paramount and Universal Studio their testing server, stolen unreleased movies, right, unreleased movies and published in the torrents, right, even before it was edited, all these things. So those things are malicious and bad scenarios. So and also those the people sometimes get caught by the US Marshals or any other the we call it as police or cyber armies, right, or those the people or cyber corps, right. But black hats mostly, right, may never be what you call caught because of their skills and the talents, right. So that's the differentiation from the perspective of white hat and the black hats. But in middle of that there is something called gray hat hackers, right. Gray hats, right. The gray hats are basically it could be it could be in the daytime or open times, right. It could be act as a professional. He is marvelously educated, right, or a certified guy, and could be a consultant, right, a good consultant. In sometimes, right, the consultant also has a bad or evil intentions, right. So, that leads him or her, right, to become like a grey hat. They have like it is a hybrid life. One is like in a professional world, like he is a remarkable person, acceptable and remarkable educated character. In hidden life, he could be a real hacker, right? And it's a very very difficult scenario to identify or get caught like this type of guys, because it's, well, nobody's thought like nobody's thinking like that's okay. This guy is like, oh my goodness, this like this guy is like is a perfect person. Is a real talented guy. Is a certified guy. Oh my goodness! It's like it's the big shot, a big technical in a shot, right? But ultimately, we never knew, right, that this guy could also be a black hat as well.
He is more than opportunistic. When the
Exactly.
opportunity comes, when the time comes, when they have the chance, they are pouncing on that.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's what. So hopefully we wouldn't have that Sri Lankan version of Robin Hood, like say Saradiyal hacker or something.
I'd love to actually see if there's anything, right, something like that.
So, but we don't encourage here.
Yeah, we don't encourage like this type of thing. But if it's Saradiyal is not a criminal, from the government side is a criminal, right? So and from the people's side he's a hero, right? So we don't know about how to differentiate, but is on the middle, right? So it could be a like evil intention, it could be like good intention. So its justification could be like taken by the relevant parties.
Yeah, so that's right. Okay. Okay, so we are getting even deep into this one. Now then, of course, the other very important stuff we want to discuss about this hacking life cycle. Now this, of course, some people call as the anatomy of an attack. How an attack is launched, before the attack, of how you plan the attack, then again of course how you launch the attack, and then once you're done, so how to get out of that without being caught actually. There are 5 different phases, I guess, right? It's like reconnaissance, then again scanning, then gaining access, maintaining access, then finally covering the tracks like that. So what's the importance of, now for example, I think reconnaissance they call as gathering information, right? Oh, you said information gathering. Yeah. So in that case, basically I think it's also very close to human life as well, isn't it? So for example, the people when they are trying to find the information about the others, whether they are of course say probably in the boyhood there might have been reconnaissancing on a certain interested target. For example, when the target goes out of the house, or when the target goes to the classes, so what's the time, and whether actually her, right? Yeah. Mostly, yeah. Her parents are involved in there, whether father is working in the police, or whether there's a ayah or someone like that. So when it comes to this, what do you call the technologically, how do you find that?
In reconnaissance side, like so we call in shortened word, like we call it as recon stage, right? Recon stage. So in this stage, right, mostly it's the hacker whoever like the perpetrator, right, takes the what you call all possible, gather all possible information, right, set of information about the remote target, right. So similar, like you said, like in the live as well, right, most like we do that, we also like even I did, right, you perhaps, I don't know, right.
Okay, as a confession, yes.
Right, okay. So that's the way it is.
So we both are confessing about our past, yeah, okay.
Of course, like in our schooling time, right. Very nice time, right. So it's not like a new thing, like from the fetch from our lives, right. So but in the digital world, when it comes to the recon, right, so it's a similar tactics, right, but it's a different methods like used to, right, gather the information. Now when it comes to like this reconnaissance stages, right, gathering the details in manual methods, right, the manual gathering methods, perhaps sometimes automated methods, And now, like these days, right, the arrival of artificial intelligence, right, the gathering thing, right, it's improved lot, enhanced lot, and now the gathering stage is very, very easy because of the AI and the chat GPT, like is there. So the gathering information is like much more easier than ever. And also certain like there's something like open source intelligence, right, OSINT, right, techniques also fetched into the recon stage, and it now actually like the hackers or bad guys like with the bad intention who could actually gather the details precisely, right, without having any user burden, right, extra burden. So because of these technologies involvement, right. So ChatGPT and OpenAI as well as OSINT works fine as much as like so you do in a right manner, right. So I think like the gathering information is a very, very important section of anything like in the hacking life cycle. And when it comes to like the gathering information, right after that is a verification of that the information you gathered is something called scanning stage.
Yeah, right. So of course, in our future podcasts, we are hoping to talk about all these things one by one in much detail. Right. So we'll take a bit of a twist here, actually. So we just want to pass this where now he has been in the industry for a long time, and I've been in the industry as well, and then of course in this academic world. But it's our time to pass the baton to the next generation.